welcome Donna Anselmo, and she's going to be doing a presentation about how to meet your extraordinary self. So please give her a welcome.
I have to tell you that about 3 years ago, I sat in a chair just like you did, and there were a lot more people in the room now. And I had gone to a conference called the National Association of Mother Centers Work-Life Balance Conference, and they had seminars just like today does. And I went to a seminar called The Extraordinary Self. And I said, well, it sounds good, you know, I had to pick something off the list, and I had heard of the presenter, I kind of knew her, but I had never heard her speak before. I didn't really know what she did, but she founded the Extraordinary Self program. And so today, I'm here because I took this class, and I was so inspired by it that I wanted to share it. And so I became very involved with Dr. Diane Kramer and Peak Skills Learning and the Extraordinary Self program, which is actually taught in a number of states across the nation, and it is based in New York. But what this is about is how you access your inner resources and your inner self so that you can be the best you can be all the time. And that comes from being able to believe in yourself and not question and not doubt who you are and not get caught up in self-defeating patterns. And we're going to talk about that as we move through the presentation. But I can tell you that it had a very profound effect upon me. I was living in New York, and I was doing business as a marketing company, a solely owned marketing company. I'm not a partner though. And I was very busy, and I had been to lots of seminars, and I had presented many seminars myself. And when I went to this, it was like, wow, this was fresh, and something that Dr. Kramer was saying really began to change my life, and I totally didn't expect it. Even when I decided to sign up for the program, I didn't expect it. I signed up thinking, oh, I'm going to go learn sales techniques. I don't know where I got that idea from, but I think it was probably I was projecting what I wanted to get out of it. So what I learned there was all about how to become a peak performer, which is how to achieve the things you want to achieve more frequently than most people achieve their goals, and how you achieve things consistently. So what we're going to do to get there is I've actually left on the chairs a little bit of a checklist so that you can think about yourself in this mode as we're going through it, and think about what some of your own goals are. What are some of the things that get in the way? What patterns do you have that you might need to overcome, and what are some of the goals that you would like to achieve for yourself? And then what are some of the next things that you can do on a day-to-day basis to make those things happen? It's really very simple if you just start to understand a few key principles, and I'm going to talk about those. We're also going to identify some of the things that you can do differently, and when I say write your own blueprint for success, that's at least write down the 3 things that you're going to do today. We only have a limited amount of time, so there's only so much that we can do. Think about what is it that you'd like to come away with from this seminar today. What would you like to achieve in your life in the next 8 weeks? Make it a timetable that you can track and see the end of, maybe 12 weeks. What breakthrough outcome would you want? Well, that means, what is a big thing I want to accomplish? We can all do easy things and just knock something off our to-do list tomorrow, but what is like the big goal that you want to go for? And then how can you plan to get yourself to go for it? The self-assessment exercise number 1 is really thinking about what are some of the things that you want. I'm not going to have time today, because of this limited time frame for this seminar, to let you take the time to give you a few minutes to jot it down, and we'll never get through. But I want you to think about what some of those things are, and then to take the time. If you want to do it while I'm talking, feel free. But if you want to take it home and think about this, that would be awesome. Remember that people who operate in ordinary mode, there's a difference between being ordinary and being extraordinary, because ordinary people succeed some of the time, and ordinary people do good things. It's the method and the measure of the consistency of doing things. Come on in, have a seat. Doing things extraordinary all the time, or over and over again, and reaching those goals more frequently than other people do. Most of the time, what gets in our way is things that happen that impact our confidence. we feel bad when things don't go our way, and we also fear feeling bad. And because we fear feeling bad, we very often don't move forward, because sometimes we know what we've got now, we're comfortable with what we have now, but we're not so sure that if we change it, we're going to be more comfortable. So sometimes we really don't act. Automatic update, I think we're going to try to click that box away. Hold on.
Just hit restart later.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thanks for that. So we get constrained by limiting beliefs. And where do the limiting beliefs come from? Well, they come from things that we've heard over time in our own mind and things that other people have told us, like all the reasons we can't do stuff. All the beliefs that we have that I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, somebody won't let me do it, somebody won't like me if I do it, I won't be able to do it because I don't know enough. Well, guess what? What do you do if you don't know enough to do something?
You learn more about it.
You learn, thank you, you learn about it. If we can just stay in continuous learning mode and put ourselves into the mindset to stay in continuous learning mode, we can go leaps and bounds beyond the people around us. But a lot of times we get stuck where we are, and so we just keep doing the same old things that haven't worked for us before, but somehow we stay attached to them. When we're in extraordinary mode, we are confident that we can make decisions and that those decisions are based on what's possible in the world. Can we have a goal that's not possible?
Sure.
No. You really can't. I mean, you can say you have it, but it can't really be your goal. You can't embrace it, you can't do it, you can't achieve it if it's not possible in this world. That means we need to be realistic. But we also need to think out of the box. And if there is any chance that we can gather into our control or influence the things we need to make that happen, well then, you know what, maybe we can make that a goal. But we have to be realistic about what's possible. If we stay in continuous learning mode, which means I don't know what I need to know to get where I want to be, but I can find out somehow. I can read a book, I can call somebody, I can ask 5 people what they would do. That's my favorite one lately, is ask 5 people. But if you don't know what to do and you ask somebody else, you very often get insight you haven't thought about. And that other insight really jazzes it up for you, and from there you start to move forward. We can also shift from limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs. Let's just think of an example of a limiting belief. We'll get simple. I'm going to say, I can't teach this course because I don't know enough. What is the more empowering belief? Somebody? Karen?
I can learn enough to teach this course.
Thank you. That's a perfectly great, empowering belief. I can learn enough to do it. I can learn enough to teach this course. When I first saw Diane Kramer present this, I certainly didn't know it. I could not have gotten up and taught this course. But I can teach it now because I went into continuous learning mode. And I think that just the fact that you're all here tells me something. People who are here today, you're continuous learners. You've already got a leg up on being extraordinary. So meet your extraordinary self today because you're here in this room. You've got what it takes. You just need to shift your beliefs a little bit to do it, and maybe you need to shift your patterns and your action plan. We can transform patterns and turn them into confidence-building systems. What are some of the self-defeating patterns that get in our way? Worry, fear of rejection, procrastination, avoidance. Anybody avoid things they don't like? I procrastinate sometimes, okay? What about, I've got to do it because you asked me, because somebody wants me to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm the perfect pleaser. I do whatever anybody asks me to do, and I'm just there. I am all the time, and that's one of my patterns. So I try to please everybody. That's a pattern. Well, if I'm so busy pleasing other people, guess what? I will tell you, I'm the marketing person in the exhibit room with no marketing banner. Because I'm so busy doing my clients' marketing banners, I didn't bring one. And I left mine in New York. I actually do have one. But I was doing other stuff. And I was doing other stuff, I'll tell you, because I decided I needed to learn what I had to do to make my website better. So I spent some time over the last 2 weeks. I told my clients, because I was trying to stop being the perfect pleaser, Karen knows, I told people, I'm sorry I can't help you for the next 2 weeks because I hired myself. I'm a consultant, I'm a marketing consultant. People have me on retainer to work with them. Some people hire me for project, on a project basis. But I said, I can't come and help you for 2 weeks because I have to do my own stuff. I have to do my website. I have to finish up my contract with McGraw-Hill. And speaking of an extraordinary life goal, my extraordinary goal has been, since I was a child, I was a writer. You know, my dad told me in junior high I should be a writer. So it was always something, one of the beliefs I absorbed, that I was a writer and I had to write something. Well, of course, I became a journalist, so I wrote many, many articles. But now I wanted to write a book. And I think that this program really helped me to get the focus to do it. And after many, many tries, I finally just sold a book to McGraw-Hill. So I have a book coming out on marketing. It'll come out in 2010. So yeah, and I'm very, very excited about it and very grateful to the people who helped me and to my agent. But we can get caught up in all of these. The biggest pattern that gets in our way is fear. We are just so afraid of feeling bad that we just very often let that fear make us stay where we are, stagnate, we don't move forward. So these are some of the patterns of limiting beliefs. So if these are your patterns, you need to think about them. And so on the sheet that's on everybody's chair, you can actually do your own pattern. Figure out for yourself what's getting in your way. Because once you define it and you own it, you can start to change it. So take some time later to write this down. Go through this exercise and figure out what your self-defeating pattern is. Now let me tell you what an extraordinary self is. An extraordinary self is somebody who performs at a very high level all the time. And they perform at a high level because they've integrated key aspects of self, key aspects of performance, key attributes of self into one great integrated pattern. So what are some of these attributes? We start with unshakable self-worth. Unshakable self-worth means being able to wake up in the morning and not worry about what somebody else thinks about you. Not worry if somebody else is going to like what you did that day. Just get up, embrace the morning, and say, you know what, God graced me, I'm here. And I'm good just because I exist. One fellow who took our program, we started mantras. You know, we have these little anchors, mantras that we do to anchor ourselves in our unshakable self-worth state. So we said to somebody, well, what is your mantra? And he says, I'm valuable because I breathe. I'm valuable because I exist. That was all it took for him to feel good in the morning, and he gets out of bed and never questions himself. These attributes, by the way, of being able not to, instead of questioning yourself, being able to focus on a mission, to have something out there that's bigger than you, something that's really incredible that you want to see happen for the world or for the people around you, or even if it's just for you, but it's something you can target. It's that mission focus and that belief in yourself as being okay and ready to start the day is what peak performance top CEOs have all figured out, and they've all embraced these attributes. Karen's got a great vision I'm going to mention because she's building a community. She's bought property in Costa Rica. She's building an off-the-grid community. We've got an engineer sitting next to you, by the way, who is doing some, she's creating a community that's not going to harm the environment. Someday it will be real in Costa Rica. Right now she's in fundraising mode, but it's a great goal. That is a breakthrough goal, to create a community that can teach people to live in a new way. So if you can, you've got unshakable self-worth, mission, vision, you've got values, you know what your values are. And then you say, okay, this is a breakthrough goal that I am going to target. Well, these peak performers are really good at next steps. They have a next step action line. Starts here, chunks into manageable steps, and ends with the big goal. The next piece of being a peak performer is being able to step out of those patterns and those feelings that get in the way. So if you have the busy, busy pattern, I'm just so busy I can't stop and take care of me, well, you need to look at that. If you have the procrastination pattern, you have to say, what's underneath it? Why am I procrastinating? And I'm going to give you a perfect example of how this works. A few months ago, I was looking through papers and I saw that somebody was advertising for a marketing person. Now I'm thinking, okay, I could do that. I could apply for a job, or I could go talk to them about coming in and doing their marketing. So I called them up, I sent them a resume, and they called me up and they said, come and send us your portfolio, which by the way is sitting out on the table inside. Send us your portfolio. And I thought about it and I said, I don't want to send my portfolio. because I don't want to give up my pieces. First of all, I've done that before. I found out that people never send them back. And you only have a limited few of the things that you've done for people. So I didn't want to send it, and I had to figure out what to do about it. So what did I do? I left my computer. I'm no longer at my desk. I find I'm not working anymore. I'm outside hosing the lanai, because I am blessed that I can work from home. I'm hosing the lanai, I'm talking to the dog, I'm making lunch, and it dawned on me, and I went, oh my God, I'm procrastinating. The pattern hit. And I said, why am I doing all of this stuff in the middle of a work day? Well, it hit me, I got caught in a pattern. So instead of answering that email and being definitive about what I was going to do with that, am I going to send my resume thing, my portfolio in now, I had to solve a problem. But it was when I raised the awareness flag that I'm procrastinating, now I can move into learning mode. So I said, okay, why am I procrastinating? What belief is operating behind that? Well, the belief is that I'm going to feel that, is that I don't like what they asked me for, and I need to change it. But I don't think I can change it. Maybe I can't change it if I tell them I don't want to send my portfolio, I don't want to meet with them, and they say no. Am I going to feel that? Because at the bottom line, it always comes back to we don't want to feel that. So I noticed that in myself, and I said, oh, well, if I don't want to feel that, what do I have to do about it? What outcome do I want instead? Well, and I'm physically moving because it's a strategy. This is what I've got. This is what I want. So in order to get to where I want to be, I have to figure out what's the map. What do I have to do? Well, first of all, I had to get very clear on my message for myself. I had to know what I wanted out of that scenario. I had to know the best way to do it, so that became relationship-oriented with those people. And then I had to get myself to get up and do it. But I couldn't do it until I, first of all, recognized why I wasn't doing it. Then I made my plan, and then I went and I sent off an email. And in the email I explained, well, I could send you my papers, but that wouldn't be the best thing to do because of these reasons, and I really would like an opportunity to come by and meet you. Can I do that? Guess what? I get back an email. Sure, great idea, come on in. But if I had stayed in the fear, I would never have gotten into the flow. And so, which we also consider your obstacle parts, you can put a little face on them, and they become very real when I realize I've got a warrior inside of me, or an avoider, or a rebel, or a perfect pleaser. And every so often I go, oh, that's the part of me that's operating today. Well, when I can take those parts and I can negotiate with them, and remember that there's one big part that controls them all, which is the judge. Everybody, whether you call it your conscience, your superego, your inner judge, your inner CEO, there's somebody that's masterminding everything you're doing and is telling you and evaluating you at any given moment whether you're doing it well or not, and you're getting inner feedback. So what you want to do is shift the balance of those parts inside and create the kind of feedback that you need so that your inner parts become a resource. You get these superpowers inside instead of the parts that hold you back. Now, one of the other main attributes of being extraordinary, of being operating in extraordinary self-mode, is taking 100% responsibility for that which is in your control. And I believe I have a graphic I'm going to show you about that. If you don't take 100% responsibility for what's in your control, no one else is going to do it for you. There are some parts about control that are very interesting in terms of what's happening out there. I'm going to show you the graphic in a minute, so I'm going to let that go. The last part of this is that we as human beings, we're social. We are relationship oriented. And we create the best things when we create win-win relationships with people. So extraordinary selves are people who have created that whole integrated graphic. I don't know where we went. Okay. If you think about this, here it's put up as a pedal, but let me just give you one other visual to think about, okay? You know what a ceiling fan is, and the ceiling fans have all the blades that come off and they spin around when you flip the switch. Well, if you have all the blades parallel, all on the same plane, the fan creates great velocity, and it goes around rather quickly, and it gives you the air that you want, and it makes you feel good. Well, when you get a blade that goes off kilter, what happens to that fan? It wobbles, exactly. So when your fan is wobbling, it's going slower, it's not getting you where you want to go as fast. And so you might still get there, but it might be more painful. So what we want to do is to keep your fan operating swiftly, and to have all your parts aligned, the same way that you can have the blades in your fan aligned. These are the attributes that you have to work on developing. Ordinary people, they flap. People who have not really developed particularly that piece of self-worth. Up and down based on what people say to them. Somebody liked your outfit today, you feel good. Somebody liked your productivity at your job today, you feel good. But if somebody says, I don't like that, you know, I don't like the way you're talking to me, or your job wasn't done well today, you feel bad and you take it inside of you. So what we want to do is get to a point where we stop tying our sense of value to the external feedback and tie it instead to the fact that we breathe and that we can live just with grace because we're here every day. And then we want to revalue ourselves and our efforts based on feedback, because sometimes feedback is really good. Sometimes we get that feedback. Are you here already? Pardon me. I'm watching the clock. But sometimes feedback is very important to us. It always is important to us. Sometimes we get our inner feedback. Sometimes we get external feedback. What we have to decide is how relevant it is and how does it fit with us. Ordinary selves take feedback in, they check it, they take responsibility for changing their beliefs and their feelings, because the biggest thing that an extraordinary self, or you, or me, can be responsible for is how we feel and act in a given moment. So if we can change the way that we feel and we can control our feelings, think about how much more we can do when we're not stuck feeling bad about something. And for me, I'm worthwhile just because I breathe. And the new mantra that I've made for myself is, I've experimented with them, but my newest mantra is, I am graced. I live it with grace every morning when I wake up, and I attract all good things. So I am graced. I'm graced by God when I wake up in the morning. So what better way is there to start the day? And I've not been your, every Sunday churchgoer, but I believe in my heart that God is good and that there is a presence and God is in all of us. And so we try to live just with that spirit. We can do everything. So if we think about going out into the world as an extraordinary self, we want to focus on the mission. We've got a large picture. We want to impact the world in a positive way. We want to manage to the expectations that we choose for ourselves. We want to persuade that inner judge and the obstacle parts that we talked about to work with us. So how do you get your inner judge to work with you? You recognize it and say, hey, I know you're in there. I feel, I'm feeling this thought, I'm feeling this pressure inside, okay, I'm recognizing you, and I'm hearing it. What is it that I need to know about this? Well, sometimes the feelings that we get are messengers. Actually, all of our feelings are messengers. If you think about what you learned in Psychology 101, where they talk about the fight or flight mechanism, we get the adrenaline rush. The little animals get the adrenaline rush when they're fearful, and they have to decide, are they going to stand still or are they going to run? Or are they going to fight? Well, we have the same thing going on inside of us all of the time. The feeling is the message. But guess what? If you take the message, do you need the feeling anymore? No, because it's the message that's important. You can learn that. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can learn it. I'll give you an example. Dinner time at my house, I had very picky eaters for kids. And my kids were probably in their 20s at this point. They were definitely in their 20s, and I made a family dinner, and I took the time to do it, and I was busy working. I sat down at the table, and my daughter sat down, and she said, oh, I don't like, it was escarole beans, and I had mixed chicken, and somehow it was the wrong combination for her. And she didn't like it. And now, and you're chuckling because I'm sure you've all been there, but I had this experience where in the past I knew I would have gotten triggered, and I would have said, oh, what do you mean you don't like that? Just eat it, and I would have gotten annoyed because that's where I used to be. That day when she said I don't like it, something shifted because I was learning these tools. And what shifted was I went, oh, she just gave me some feedback. Okay, she doesn't like that. And I said to her, well, that's fine. I said, if you don't like it, we have peanut butter, or, pick out what you don't want. And it became a total non-issue. Now, to some of you, you might be looking at me and going, you really worried about that? But guess what? I'm real. I did. I worried about things like that. I spent my time cooking. I was a busy person. And I wanted, good feedback. But the important thing was simply just that I had the feedback. And the feedback told me she didn't like it. So was that supposed to change my life or my attitude? And it was no. So we had a very nice dinner. And it's just a simple story, but that was how it started to impact me when I took the Extraordinary Self program before I learned how to teach it. And so I became so tuned into some of the techniques that Diane was teaching us when I started the program that I said, wow, I want to go out and I want to teach this. I'm going to ask you very quickly, stand up for just a moment. Can you stand up? Just relax for a minute, and I'm going to ask you to do an exercise, and here's the exercise. First, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to think about something that upset you, something that made you frustrated, emotional, sad, angry. I'm not going to keep you in that feeling for a long moment, but just close your eyes for 1 second and envision this tough situation for yourself. And I want you to remember what it was. Go back to it and see, what did you see happening around you? What did you hear with your own ears? What were you hearing in your head? What did it feel like in your body? How did it make you feel? And just catch that feeling for a moment. Now I want you to think about this question. What did I want instead? And move yourself. Take a step to your side. Move physically out of that bad space and move into, what do I want instead? And I want you to create the instead for a moment. Close your eyes again and feel the instead. Where are you going? What's the outcome you want? When you have what you want instead, what does it look like to you in your own eyes? What does it feel like to you inside your body? What are you hearing going on around you? And what's that feeling capture for you? Now take that instead feeling and you can just come back for a moment. Could you feel a difference? Did anybody here feel a difference when you did that? Okay? Well, that's the difference between being caught in ordinary mode when you don't know what your options are and you feel frustrated or anxious or upset, and taking yourself forward to the next step. You can do it by controlling your thought and the pictures in your head. But you have to remember to do it. Okay, you can sit down. Thank you. You all deserve a break. So if you want to create a breakthrough outcome for yourself and you want to change the way that you're thinking and feeling and behaving, one of the things that I do is I say, okay, this is my favorite question. What do I want instead? And when I know what I want instead, then I start to move myself through. Well, to get it, this is what I ask myself. I say, what do I have to feel differently about? What do I have to believe differently? What do I have to learn to make this change? What do I have to do differently? So it's always, what do I have to learn, feel, do, or believe differently? And if you can start walking yourself through that process in any given moment, just the process of walking through the process actually shifts your thinking. Because you can't stay in that emotion if you're thinking about your goal. You can't. Your brain doesn't process that way. So as soon as you start shifting yourself, you can get to the next step. So what you have to do is map out a strategic learning-centered process for getting there. Always think about, what do I have to learn? Well, this is the next step action plan that I was talking about earlier. Helen Keller said it in a great way. I want to accomplish a great and noble task, but it's my chief duty to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble. There's a website out there that I think it's called everythingcounts.com. Everything counts. Everything that you do, every little task makes a difference. It's the details that count. Helen Keller knew that, and it's just a great one. So if you have this big thing that you want to do, and you break it into small things that you can do well along the way to get there, you can get to that breakthrough goal. Now this section right here, this little box up there, that's what do you do if you fall off your path? If you've set a goal for yourself, you started and something got in the way, what do? I'm sorry? What was that? You start over, exactly. You say, what do I have to do to get back on the path? And sometimes in the planning process, you even plan for that. Okay, if I fall off the path, what am I going to do? You can even have the plan ahead of time. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to talk to my banker, whatever it is. But you can have that plan for how you're going to help yourself get back on. Or it can just be, I'm going to change my thought. I'm going to check my feelings. I'm going to get some feedback internally, externally, and figure it out. But I'm going to stay in learning mode. Now, the reason that this bullseye has 3 sections, very important. In here is, in the center section, is the part of life that you actually have control over. And notice it's smaller. The next ring out is the part of life that you can influence to some degree. And the third ring are all the things you can't control. You cannot control somebody else's belief system. You cannot control maybe what's going on in a macro way in the economy, but you can control your little part of it today. So you can focus your effort always toward the middle, in the middle as often as possible in that little green spot, because that's the goal spot. That's where you want to go. You want to be there, because by doing the things you can actually control, that's when you can make things change. And so you can control your feelings, you can control your actions, and you can control your goals. You pick what you want to do. So think about what little thing that you want to accomplish today. Now, when you get stuck and you feel bad and you're saying, oh, this isn't working, I notice I'm upset today, I don't feel right. Recognize the feeling. We talked about feelings as being messengers, so you can accept it. Think about what belief is operating in your head. Are you believing something that's making you feel that way? Is the belief true? Because a lot of times we have beliefs in a truth bucket, but they really aren't truths. And you have to evaluate and give yourself a chance to digest that and see. Now, wearing an emotional airbag is taking charge of your feelings. This is another visual I can give you. When you have, we don't have time to really go through the exercise here, but just think about it. If I had a big airbag on, somebody's criticizing me, giving me negative feedback, telling me things I don't want to know, and it comes at me, if I can picture it coming, it hits my airbag and it bounces back off. I don't have to take it inside. I do not physically have to feel every change based on what somebody else out there is telling me. So I can build that airbag for myself, and I can use it when I need it, because that's a tool. Another good tool that we teach with, and we have people practice in the program, is building a divider. So if you're telling me something that's making me unhappy, and I really don't like it, and I don't agree with it, and it's just not right. I'm sorry, I'm picking on you. But if I pictured a flower, doesn't matter what it is, you can picture anything. But if I picture a nicely styled flower in between us, as I'm talking to you and I'm listening to you, but in my mind there's a flower in between us, well, that flower breaks the intensity of the contact, which means that I can distance myself a little bit, enough to hear what you're saying in a certain way, instead of getting all emotional and just reacting to it. So there are a lot of different techniques that we can use to change how we're feeling in a given moment. And with practice, I can tell you they really work. I didn't worry about what my daughter wanted for dinner. What happens is we get limiting beliefs like, I can't do it, it's not possible, I'm not in control, I can't fix the economy. Okay, what's a more empowering belief? I can do it, I just have to learn how. We had that one earlier. I have the power to decide and influence if this is what I want. I take responsibility for what's in my control. And guess what? I can feel good no matter what, because I can choose my feelings. Okay, I know this is not a great scenario, but this is the best I can do, and I'm okay with that right now. You know, so we can change what we tell ourselves. When we get information, everything that comes to us, this is part of, has anybody here heard the term neuro-linguistic programming? Okay, some of us. Well, neurolinguistics is a science that evolved in the 70s, really, that looked at how information is processed in people's minds. And what they looked at was that information comes to us through our senses, our 5 senses, and everything gets filtered through information that comes to us gets filtered through our beliefs, okay? The heart of us tells us, do we really believe it when we see it or feel it? That channels into our thoughts, our feelings, and our perceptions. Everything is linked together. And our thoughts, our feelings, and perceptions go back to come out in our behavior. And then the cycle begins again. What are we seeing around us? What are we feeling? And I love that language that I used when you were doing the visual before. If you think to yourself, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? You make yourself more conscious about what's going on. And you can change that with visualization. You can see the things that you want. Well, your beliefs impact your feelings, so we can figure out how to avoid bad feelings. Our patterns that we talked about, like worrying or having an inner judge, do you know that's really functional? Worrying, like you say, oh gee, I'm stressed or I'm worried, and we tend to think of those things as really negative. Well, they're not really negative. They're messengers for us. If we're worried, maybe there's a reason that we're supposed to be concerned. Well, if we worry, we can stay stuck in the worry, or we can say, oh, there's a concern. What do I have to do about it? What do I want instead of the worry? I want this other outcome, so I'm going to change what I'm doing, or I'm going to ask for some help, and I'm going to get it. And so we can shift from worry to productivity. But those patterns, we need every pattern, procrastination. All these patterns have a protective intent to keep us somehow from feeling bad and being judged too harshly inside. So if we learn how to navigate that, we can change our feelings and our patterns. We can learn how to shift them and get good at getting what we need, but also still honoring the needs of others. Because again, we were talking about a win-win relationship. So if we think about what holds us back right now in our behaviors, it's a challenge to you to think about what is holding you back. Use that little worksheet that is on every page to take home with you. Think about if you're having a feeling, if you're feeling stress, what's the protective intent of stress? Very often, it's to move us forward. It's to give us enough agita that we have to change something. If we don't want to be stressed, we've got to shift. So it's a message. But all of those obstacles, patterns, or parts can adapt to our need and our belief in ourselves, and basically in the power of change. How many people here were listening to Jeff Pearsall earlier today? And he was talking about if you don't change, fear of change is death, for his words today. You have to be able to adapt and change. 1989, I went to a conference in Niagara Falls, New York. They brought in the president of the president of the National PTA, and I was expecting, the big guns to come out. And she did. She came out, and what she said was, "The dinosaurs are dead because they didn't change." And that was something that stayed with me for, what is that, like 20 years? But it's more than 20. And the message was really good. We've got to learn how to adapt. So if you think about your inner judge is basically an inner parent, it is protectful of us by taking a role for us, creating stress, creating guilt, creating whatever inner emotions we have to keep us safe. It's like when you have a little child and the child, you see your kid going for the electric box, you say no, no. And that kid eventually internalizes no, no. Well, we all internalize our own inner parents and what our expectations are for ourselves. But the inner judge can push us to succeed by pressuring, punishing us, sending us worry signals, or we can choose a different way to succeed. Those methods are painful. So suppose we say we want to succeed because we see the carrot that we want out there. We see the goal. And we're just going to go for that goal, and we're going to stay in continuous learning mode to get there. So if we can do that, and we can be aware and responsible for ourselves and negotiate with our judge and all of those inner parts, we can become more successful. We can take 100% responsibility for our thoughts and our actions in getting us there. And we can learn how to step out, kind of like the way that I had you step out from that emotion and just check out where you want to be instead. That's a great transformational strategy. And you can say, okay, am I believing something that's not helping me now? What's the belief I need to have? Let me visualize myself having that belief. And take yourself into that belief and do the visualization with it. If we had more time, we could do that, but we don't have time for it, unfortunately, today. But I do teach the class. I'm going to be offering, if you want to sign up, Karen's got a book back there. We'll be offering a free telesession. Well, somewhere. Not going to worry about it right now. But we want to create win-win solutions with people, because when we're in sync with others, somehow we always feel good. Key to a successful life is building win-win solutions. But, you know, it's not about giving up everything that you want. It's about learning how to hold that boundary. And putting that flower in between you that I talked about before is one way of holding your boundaries. What is it that you want? What does the other person need? Sometimes you have to walk away and just say, it's not going to work. You have to know when that is. Compromise is always a good solution if it works for both of you. So the keys to the transformation, to being your extraordinary self and meeting your extraordinary self, is to integrate those parts that we talked about: unshakable self-worth, mission, vision, values, action steps, breakthrough planning, evolving your obstacle parts, taking responsibility, and creating win-win solutions. And then when you do that, you're going to find that your confidence grows. Why does confidence grow? It grows because we gain confidence really every time we do something well. Every time something works out for us, we can really build confidence. Confidence doesn't come from somebody patting us on the back in second grade and saying, hey, good job, Johnny, if you didn't do a good job. What confidence really comes from the little steps towards success, and every time you make one and feel good about it, your confidence grows. So in order to build that confidence, you must stay in continuous learning mode. Jeff Pearsall said it earlier this morning. Read. He said that the one characteristic, the one commonality in behavior of CEOs everywhere is that they read, and they read the latest literature and the self-help books. It's funny, but it works. You can have influence on your own motivation. That's really a very important message. You can say, am I choosing to do it because somebody's pushing me, you know, pounding at me to get this done, or am I choosing to do it because it's important to me, and it's important to the world, and it makes the world a better place? So if we look at all over at being extraordinary, and we judge for ourselves, is it good for me? Is it good for the people I deal with? And is it good for the world? If the answer is yes, well, gosh, you better be going out after that thing, because it's a great thing. And because it's a great thing, it's noble, and you deserve to go and work for that. And so make it happen. We also can translate all of these skills into the workplace, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to take it through all of the whole added presentation for building this in a workplace, but I will tell you that some of the skills for success in the workplace are emotional intelligence, being able to feel good and make good decisions, strategic decision making and thinking, creativity and innovation, impact on others, the emotional intelligence, being responsible for that which is in your control. That's a big part of emotional intelligence. So these are aspects of areas that you can actually impact if you go through processes like this for yourself. Some of the processes are reflective, some of them are more active, some of them are people-driven, and some of them are task-driven. But if you start to overlay all of those 8 skills that I talked about, and you overlay it into the fields of competencies that are really important in the corporate world or in the business world, you'll find that there's a very strong integration between the 2 models. And you can get results of heightened commitment, self-confidence, people working in them. But let me ask you this. What questions might you have? What are you looking for? Can I answer a question for anybody? Can we walk through a process or a concern or a problem for somebody? Let's do it this way. Let me ask you, what are some of your goals? Who's got a goal here? Come on. What's your goal?
To stay in the black this year in my business.
Terrific.
Meaning be on the positive financially.
Okay. And so what are you doing? Is there something that gets in the way of that goal?
I'm trying not to let it stay in the way.
Good, good. So what are you focusing on?
Updating our business look, increasing our marketing in terms of giving ourselves a fresh new look on our letterhead, our business cards, calling and reaching out to everybody that I've known for several years and reintroducing ourselves. I have an engineering firm, so a lot of times our projects take 5 to 10 years to develop, and you know we're the same old, same old. They know that we're still there, and you know making sure that they know that we're still open. You know, a lot of construction projects have stopped occurring, and the housing market has decreased, and we've done a lot of we used to do a lot of building plans structurally.
So
I'm just reminding them that we're still here.
And if something was to get in the way, or if you found yourself stuck, what would you do to move forward?
I move around.
Move around, find a new path. Excellent, excellent. What about somebody else? Okay.
Well, it doesn't really have anything to do with business, but professionalism.
You want to be an actor. Terrific. So what are you doing to get yourself there?
Well, turning in resumes to certain talent agencies and doing plays and training.
So you're getting involved in a community of other actors. That's a great thing. So you're planning, you've got your goal out there, you're doing some of the next steps. How are you going to feel? And this might be a tough question, but if you don't get a part, how do you feel?
Well, if I don't get the part that I want, I kind of feel disappointed, but once I get the feel of the part that I do have, I kind of get over the fact that I failed.
But there is no failure, okay? There is only failure to learn what we need to know to get the next part. Everything is an experience. So if you remember that next time, that there's no failure, there's only failure to learn what I can do next. And so that's how we stay in continuous learning mode. We don't wallow in feeling bad about not getting the part. We can have a moment of disappointment, we're all human. But then we can say, okay, what do I want instead? I want the next part. What do I have to do to get it? That's a great example, and thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
I have my own business. I'm a graphic designer. I, get work in, and it's partly because it's tricky because it's creative stuff, and you got to catch a wave of creativity kind of and then ride it. But I procrastinate starting my work day because I work at home.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's just like it's real easy to get distracted.
So what could help you to move forward? What would you need to learn not to procrastinate in the morning?
Got any ideas?
Yeah. Well, the first idea that I would think about is what's the overall goal? Like, where do I want to be at the end of the day? And so if I think about how am I going to feel if I get this done, I know I'm going to feel really good. So that's the motivation. Maybe the money, the check that's going to come in when you turn in that design. So it's a very good motivator. But then I would ask myself the question, why am I procrastinating? What's happening in my life that's making me not want to do this right now? And I would listen, just get quiet for a minute and listen to, is there something I'm believing that I think I'm going to have something better if I don't do this right now? And ask yourself that question, and then ask what would happen if you shifted and you did the work right now instead. And then there's a play happening here, because we all are pulled in different directions. And so we have to figure out where is the strongest motivation. And it's easy to get pulled in distractions. I know, I have a little multi-poo. She constantly is on top of me to do stuff with her, and she's a delightful distraction. And I do graphic design as well as another. I have an integrated marketing firm. Training is the part that I integrate. So I totally understand. And you can't be in creative mode all the time. So creativity comes when you're relaxed and when you're feeling really good. And if you're waking up and you didn't get enough sleep, it is hard to be creative all the time. So I would think about what you can do for yourself that's really nice. If you have to procrastinate, figure out why. If it means reading a magazine or reading a book or putting on some music, do that and then take the next step. But always think about what's the outcome that you want and what's the belief that's checking you in the meantime. Are we on time? Okay, do we have one more question?
No, I think
Oh, Edna. Oh, okay. Sorry, we ran over time. I should have watched my watch more carefully. Thank you so much for being here, and I know you're all extraordinary, so